Peace and blessings, and welcome back to the Heritage Hip Hop Podcast. This is Karev, and I thank you for coming back to listen to another show with us. This episode is sponsored by Transparent Credit Repair, the superheroes of the financial literacy and credit repair world. If you're looking to change your credit score and to come out of debt, to open your wallet to more income instead of paying bills, contact Transparent Credit Repair at www.transparentcreditrepair.com, or you can call them at 862-250-5122 and tell them Heritage Hip Hop sent you and get something very special in the transaction. This episode, we talk to Steve Sxaks, who talks about his influences and his love for music and how music helped him grow from being a young man who had a hard time expressing himself to being someone who has given himself towards expression and uses the music to teach as well. And we also want to say rest in peace to Sean Price. Sean Price is one of this man's mentors, and this past weekend we had a celebration for Sean Price on Instagram and all over the place where people were posting pictures remembering the late great MC. So for this episode, we dedicate this not only to the people that we may have lost, our loved ones, to COVID and things going on in society today, but we also want to give Sean P a special shout out. Shout out to the Ruck Down family, Duck Down, his physical family, and all those that love him. But without further ado, we're going to go into our interview, and I'll come back with the rest of my commentary when it's done.
Peace and blessings, everybody. This is Karev from Heritage Hip Hop, and every time we say hip hop, people always think about MP3s, samples, beats, rhymes, and that's it. When hip hop is an envelope that carries all genres, all forms of expressions, and great artists. I have one tonight. Please introduce yourself to the people.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Steve Sxaks from Martin House. Yeah, man, I'm excited to be here. Appreciate you having me on.
I thank you for sharing your album with me, because one thing about hip hop one thing hip hop taught me is that if everything is hip hop, we should not ever not listen to good music. You agree?
I definitely agree.
Tell me about a song that changed your life and made you want to go into music.
Oh man, that's so hard. I've been super into music my whole life. Like my dad, I kind of like inherited his record collection, and my mom, I inherited her record collection. And just growing up in Philly, I used to go to every show, like all genres. It could be hip hop, punk rock, at the Trocadero, different house parties, all types of music. I think the show that I went to, though, that changed my life and made me know this is what I wanted to do was Sean Price on the Jesus Price tour. He was with Jedi Mind Tricks and Reef the Lost Cause at the Troc. I was like 14 or 15, and it was just like I got to meet all the guys after the show, and they were all super cool. And then now I know them all. Well, rest in peace, Sean P. But I knew everybody personally after, and it was just like super dope experience. And that album, I had a huge Nina Simone poster, and then right next to it, my Sean Price, Jesus Price poster from that tour. So it's hard to limit everything to one song, but that would be the show that changed everything. I can say that.
Okay, let's peel back what you said, because you said a lot.
I'm little words. Bro, I'm a talker. I'm sorry.
That's cool. No. That's great. I love that, because what you're going to learn about Heritage Hip Hop is we don't do the typical on and off questions. I don't care what made you, people say, so how did you know you wanted to rap? Like, I don't care about that. I care about you, the person. And you said something very deep. One thing for sure, I'm a Sean Price fan, so shout out to Sean Price. I'm not really anybody's fan, but if there's somebody I could listen to every day, he's one of them. So shout out to Sean Price, rest in peace. Jedi Mind Tricks is very lyrical. So one thing about them is they like to not only produce songs, they like to make the song. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And Reef the Lost Cause is lyrical, but he talks to you through his lyrics. He's not just somebody who gives you a bar fest. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I can see from how you create your music, you are somebody who likes to pattern what you're saying in speech so that people can follow you through your beat structure. Am I correct?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, I mean, let's go back though. Like you said, something bugged out to me because I didn't grow up like that. You said your mom and your dad, you inherited their collections. What music did you get from both of them? Let's separate it. What did you get from mom and what did you get from dad? And shout out to mom and dad. Y'all the best.
I mean, my mom was always more, my mom liked everything from Rolling Stones to Biggie. So like I inherited a lot of like that. She was really, but even like other weird stuff, like Rolling Stones, hands down her favorite band, and she was really into like indie stuff, and then like I said, like Biggie, she liked Pac, she likes that kind of stuff. And then my dad, he was more into like old school punk rock and some old school rock stuff, which I don't necessarily care for all the old classic rock, honestly. I'm just being real. But I definitely grew to appreciate, music and because of their taste. And like growing up, like my dad used to go to, all the hip hop shows and all the punk rock shows with me. Like my dad would be like my dad's not much older than me, so he'd be out there drinking 40s with all my friends. I'm like 14, 15. You know what I mean? Like he would just be at the shows, at the house parties, and I was always in bands, and then especially once I started rapping, like that was like my guy. Like before I grew up with my dad. My mom lived across the country. Actually, she lived in Jersey for a long time, and then she moved to Texas. But yeah, so like my dad, like he would take me to all my shows when I was a kid, like, load my drum set up in the back of the car or whatever, pick up all my friends that were rapping with me and just bring me to these dingy, dusty old venues. And so like, yeah, I mean, I picked up on everything. I just definitely had a great love for all music, because of them and because of like other just people that I would meet growing up. And my like first girlfriend, we really discovered a lot of music together. Like we were the ones going out to all these like house shows and finding, all the Philly rappers that was like really what my big thing was, like the local Philly scene, the DVD rap era. They actually filmed the last Hood Stars DVD in our studio. That was the last one they put out.
Wow.
So like that, it's just kind of like now I met all these dudes. Now I've like worked with all of them. I've recorded everybody, and it's just kind of dope to like, me and the guy who started Marching Out together would roll around, make mix CDs in his crappy Mazda, and just like dump all those dudes. And now like we know them all. So I know I kind of strayed off, man. I got ADD.
No, it's great. It's great because I want to ask you a question. Which parent introduced you to Jefferson Airplane?
Oh, definitely my dad.
That's what I'm talking about. Shout out to Dad.
I definitely got a couple Jefferson Airplane records from him.
You got to, because I hear it in some of the sound that you got with how the guitar riffs. We'll talk about that in a minute, though. I want to ask you something because your dad was your personal roadie. It seemed like he had you right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. He always supported me in music. That was like his. He wanted to make sure that. I was kind of like the alternative school kid. I ended up getting kicked out of high school and went on tour in a band from the time I was 17 to like 19. Then we started the studio, and it really was my dad who always like kept pushing me to keep making music. And if I ever did anything that would jeopardize my music career, he'd be on me. he wasn't with that.
So your dad is the person who not only nurtured the seed that you had in you for growth, he also made sure that you believed in yourself to make your music prosper, correct?
Absolutely.
That is the key to where a lot of people in music fail, is because they do it, but they're not putting their all into it because they don't have a backing. What does it mean as an artist to know you have a fan that not only puts into you, but wants to see you grow so you can connect to other people and come and they'll appreciate you like he appreciates you?
I don't. That's hard, honestly. Just because I really I know it sounds so cliche, but like when I'm making music, I don't really have like fans in mind at all.
Okay.
It's not even,
That's smart.
it's not like necessarily about like appreciation. I'm definitely like I play every instrument and usually my music just starts off with something. I mean, if you listen to the whole album, you know the theme is pretty much tragedy, honestly. So it's like something usually is tragic in my life, or something happens, and I just lay a guitar riff down and some drums, and that hasn't always been the case, you know, like because I've definitely this album is less like traditional hip hop, quote unquote.
Okay.
I've been on kind of like a stream for, you know, everybody knows me as like an underground hip hop guy, and this one kind of like in the face of my fans kind of just flipped everything on them. You know what I mean? So it's like I just like feel like I never really have them in mind, but with that, the appreciation comes, and I'm very grateful to all the fans, and it's not like I'm, you know, ignoring their wishes out of spite or anything. It's just I feel like if you only have other people in mind on what you're doing, then you're not really being true to yourself as an artist, and it can just kind of like suck your soul out.
That's true, and that's why I said it's very smart that you said that, because when you put yourself inside of the box, it's very hard to get out of it, because you're always gonna want to be to the norm, but that's not normal. That's psychotic, you know. And listening to Raynor, right? It took me back to old ECW. I was an ECW fan. Now that's something I liked. Shout out to ECW, everybody who knows what I'm talking about, with Raven and Tommy Dreamer and Sandman and New Jack. That's what the album reminded me of. Yeah, definitely, it's a Philly thing. Shout out to the Barkeep Bullies. Yeah. But I mean, that's what that album reminds me of. Old school ECW. So I got a little happy with that, because it's like ECW was about not only the rhythm, but the impact of the beat. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What's more important for you, the impact, or for people to just groove with you when you create music?
I definitely think impact is important, because, you know, you want to say stuff that people take to heart and can, you know, relate to and everything. So I think impact is important, but I mean, if you ask anybody new coming up, they'll probably say just grooving with the music. Like, I feel like that, like, lyricism has definitely lost a step in the world, and if you can just groove with the beat, then that's what people care about the most. So I think for me, the most important thing is impact. Just having people like really be able to, like, you know, listen to something. Like when I listen to something that really like gets me, like I get goosebumps, I get chills. It's just like it hits deep. Like, I'm that kind of music listener. So if I can do that for somebody else, then, you know, that means the world to me. So I think impact.
Yeah, impact. Like, yeah, everybody wants to groove, but you could groove your ass into sleep, part of my language. But let's look at Boomerang. Boomerang had impact to it. And Boomerang was a song where you went into emotions, feelings, and outcomes. Shout out to Erica Scott, who lent her voice to the track. Tell us about the creation of Boomerang, and what exactly were you attacking with the impact of the beat and the impact of the lyrics?
Yeah. I mean, Boomerang, I got really, like, into that, like, 70s rock sound for a little bit. Like, just, like, rediscovering, like, psychedelic rock. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with, like, Ad-Lib and all those guys. I've toured with Ad-Lib, and now he's in a group called Space Camp. And I remember going on tour with him, and it was, like, psychedelic rock. It would be, like, hardcore underground. You know, like he was like Jedi Mind Trick affiliate and all those guys. And so it's like hardcore underground hip hop, but we only listen to psychedelic rock on the tour. And so I don't know why, but like it just kind of always like became like a fascination to me to just write little rock riffs and whatnot. And then I think that documentary about why can't I think of her name now? Anyway, some documentary came out about somebody that I can't even remember, and it's like, yeah, this chick, this is what I want. And I hit Erica up. She's like a childhood friend, and I was like, I definitely want you. I said, I think you can sing like this girl. And she was like, okay, yeah. And then she came in, and you know, we wrote the lyrics together to it, and we wanted to do a song about, like, from, like, both of our perspectives about how I'm wrong, but something that could be, you know, you know, you can relate to it as a guy. You know you're wrong, but you can definitely relate to her side of it, the pain and everything. So that's kind of like where we were coming up with it. When we were doing it, she was just like, I don't know how you thinking this stuff. I'm like, I don't either. It's flowing, so let's go with it. So
yeah, it came out really good.
Yeah,
it came out really good.
That's one of the least hip hoppy songs on the project, but it's definitely one that I really like a lot.
Yeah, I like it a lot too, because the concept of a boomerang is you throw it and it comes back. And in relationships, you always give somebody hell, and when you do, they make you pay for it. You know what I'm saying? And I don't care if you like hip hop, rock, R&B, whatever. Everybody can relate to that. That's something that connects the heart of the listener to the song. Why do you think most people have music where the heart cannot connect to the person who's producing the music?
You said, why do I think people have
a hard time connecting their heart to the music of today?
Well, I think a lot of times people are making music that doesn't mean anything to them. Like, people just kind of are jumping trend to trend. I think that's where, like, a big problem comes in, because if you're just, like, every week you're putting out a new song that just sounds like, you know, one day you're Post Malone, the next day you're Juice WRLD, the next day you're Lil Peep. And don't get me wrong, like, I never hate on anybody who makes music, so I won't say that any of them are trash or anything. I think, you know, they're doing.
Yeah, I will. You don't have to say it. I'll say it for you. Don't worry about it. Go ahead.
But I feel like if every week you're just on a different wave, it's impossible to connect to what you're saying, because you can't even connect to what you're saying. You can't connect to what you're doing. You're just riding whatever wave is popular.
Yeah, and that's why I like this album, because this album is not a wave rider. This album is either you listen or you don't. But whether you do or not, you're going to walk away with something. And I walked away with a lot. Let's go with one song that really kind of hit my heart. Let's talk about Mad Leather.
Okay, yeah, Mad Leather, that's a fun one.
Mad Leather has some hip-hop to it, has a lot of rock to it, has a lot of anger to it. What was the concept of Mad Leather, and who are y'all talking to on the track?
So our Mad Leather was a track. I'm in a group called Corfu, and it's like a cipher crew where everybody just raps together. And I wanted to get like my Corfu brothers on this song. We just recently lost like one of the founding members and best friend, Rich Quick.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, rest in peace, Rich.
Sorry about that.
At the studio, there used to be these kids at the studio called Rec Philly, and one day at the studio, we just did not like these kids. And me and Rich was painting our door, like the entrance to the studio, and this kid accidentally like bumped into my guitar, and I was like, yo, watch where you're going, that guitar is worth more than your life. And Rich was just like, yo, I think you calm down. I don't think you like, you know, he was like trying to talk me down. He's like, you're acting mad leathery right now, like, because I was wearing a leather jacket. So he was just like busting on me, and we just started saying leathery whenever somebody's like being a grump or like being, you know, like angry. So if you're angry or if you're being abrasive, you're leathery. That was kind of like our little joke. So when he passed away, we made that song, and it just kind of like, you know, there was a couple bars coming at those kids as a joke, you know what I mean? But it was definitely like all of the Corfu tracks are all basically ciphers. Everybody's just rapping, having fun. But we wanted to show love with Rich. Like, that's where the "Don't Touch My Guitar, It's Worth More in Your Life" and the chorus comes from. That's really true to the story. I know that's probably like weird, but people love that song for some reason.
There's a lot of energy to it. And I respect you for always going back to remember a member of the group. So I'm gonna extend that to you. I would love to come to the studio and interview all of you as a collective.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Because that's a lost art. Well, I say in hip hop and all music is people don't pay homage anymore. You actually paid homage to the way you created the song Slide. Tell me about Slide and where you got the tempo for that song. Because it's kind of like a throwback.
Yeah, Slide was definitely we were doing these Corfu sessions, like right after Rich died. We would do sessions at three of us all own different studios. So Rob D, he has The Shed in Morrisville. Mason, he's at Breed in the same building as like Milk Boy by the Electric Factory, and then I have Marston House, which is on 9th and Dawson. So we would like rotate between where everybody was going to make music. It's kind of like a memorial thing. We cut like 50 tracks, and one day it was like my turn to host. And usually, if you hosted, you made the music. It was like kind of part of the job. And I did that little guitar riff, that and Ohm was just like, yo, that's the one. And so I just put the guitar riff down, laid a little bass track on top of it, and then just like threw some drums from, I've just played them on a drum pad. And yeah, everybody just, I probably made that song in like 10 minutes, like the music to it, and then just everybody kind of came with a verse on that one. So it's just another one, like another Corfu track. Like, I'm definitely somebody who wants to show love to my boys and like my family on as much stuff as I can. So I want everybody to be a part of my music, and that's kind of where the last two tracks on the album came from, like just wanting to get everybody involved.
Yeah, that's old school ciphering.
Yeah, that's kind of the point.
And back in the day, that was also where grooves came in, because people would want to connect and see who could really take control of a jam session and bring the best of the best out of each other, I think that's lost nowadays, because I don't think a lot of people really live their art. I think a lot of people just make a lot of noise. How do you feel about that comment?
I agree, honestly. I think that people don't, noise I completely agree with. As from an engineer point, I've been engineering and owning the studio for almost 12 years. And it drives me crazy when I hear a song come out, especially if it's on like the radio and the like auto-tune is off key from the song. That's like my biggest thing. That's just noise. Like, it's off key, it doesn't sound good, but people don't care. So I feel like, yeah, it is noise. But some of the stuff I listened to growing up, people probably thought was just noise. So I can't even, like I said, I can't hate on what kids are liking these days, but it's not for me. Like if your mix sounds like trash, like SoundCloud rappers, I'm just not with it. It's just like, you didn't care anything about your mix. You just put on 6 layers of reverb, did EQ presets, no compressor, and just like turned everything up to where it distorts. It's like, that's just, I'm big on, I'm very big on good sound quality and production. Unless it's like purposely like not sounding great, like some old Wu-Tang records where the distortion was just, vital to the project. But I can't get with the bad sound quality.
Well, that's because you're an engineer, and engineers are one of I think they're the most underrepresented people when it comes to music, especially in hip hop, because if you don't have a good engineer, you really don't have a good song. The engineer carries a lot of the responsibility, and we don't have people who shout out the engineers enough. With that being said, though, a lot of people give their opinion to what they believe good music should be. What is good music to you, and how do you create good music in your opinion?
To me, good music is anything that when I'm listening to it, like, it's all I'm thinking about. Like, maybe there's a line in it that drags you in. And good music, you can only give your attention to what you're listening to. So, and I think that, everything hits people differently. There's definitely, stuff that I don't like that people think is great. I don't think I'm like the authority. Maybe I did at one time. I definitely have been a music snob in my life. I'd like to think that I'm recovered from that. But I think making good music really comes down to just actually believing in what you're saying. Like if you're really in the streets and you're making music about that, then it can be great music. But if you're not really in the streets and you're just kind of saying stuff, I don't think that's great music. I think that's kind of goes back to what I said earlier. You're just riding a wave. You're putting on a show. Like, I get that there is definitely a certain level of this that is entertainment, but if you never held a gun, don't rap about it, don't sing about it, don't go into a song with that mentality. I think that's kind of how you make good music, is just being true to yourself, and that's kind of a dying thing these days. People are openly rap, like you hear rappers, and not even just rappers. I think it's something that's infected all genres of music that are talking about drugs and stuff they've never experienced, and just because that's what's popular to talk about. And it's kind of, I don't think there is like a great, I can't think of a current person who's come out in this year that I think is just great. If that makes sense.
That's interesting.
I'm searching my brain for somebody, but I can't.
I got someone for you to listen to. I definitely have someone you could listen to, and I would love to get your opinion on them. Really, I really would like to, because that was very interesting. I think what you said is what made DMX so great. Is when you heard DMX, the emotion was so pure. You could not, you couldn't deny who DMX was. Like, after you heard his song, you knew what you went through, whether it's a prayer, whether it's a bar, or whether it was a skit. He believed every single thing he said.
He's still living the life of what he's talking. But it's dark and hell is hot. That was one of the first cassette tapes I bought from like FYE or something, like on
FYE.
Back in the day when it was on Broad Street. Just grab that tape. They didn't even want to sell it to me because I was definitely underage, and they used to actually care about that stuff. But great tape. I still love that record. But I definitely get, like, I have a lot of students. Like, I teach music production to a lot of younger kids, high school kids, and I try to introduce them to, like, music of all genres. And that's always my homework assignment. Like, listen to this, listen to that, but especially, like, older hip-hop. And, DMX doesn't seem that old in the grand, but to these kids, they don't know anything. But, I definitely get when people listen to it and they're just like, yeah, I just feel like he's screaming at me. I'm like, okay, fair enough. You're allowed your opinion. But that anger, that pain, that was what made that record so great.
Yeah, let's talk about that back on your project, though. Because, like I said, Mad Leather had the anger. It brought you in. Took me back to Onyx, early '93. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But what about False Idols?
False Idols? That was, so, like, I went through, like a divorce and a bunch of other stuff, and I thought False Idols, when I was making the record, it kind of was like a Rage Against the Machine riff, like that slow, chuggy riff. But I kind of wanted it to be a little bit, I didn't want to carry the same anger. I kind of wanted it to sound like, almost like I didn't care, or like very nonchalant. And that's just kind of how it came out. Like, when I kind of struggled with putting it even on the record, but I wanted to, like, just stay true to the vision and put it on there, just telling that story. I feel like it's relatable. It definitely has, like, sadness and some anger to it, but it's kind of also like I'm better off now type of situation. But yeah, that's an interesting song. I feel it every time it comes on. I'm just like, okay, this is a different one.
But see, that's what music is to many people. Music is the great debater. It's the great medicine. It's the great therapist that can not only take us through our emotions, but it can help us get out our emotions, especially when we're going through something like matters of the heart or matters of introspection. How does creating an album help you deal with life and help you elevate your life at the same time?
Honestly, like, I feel like that's the only time I can create music is when something's going on. Like, something, I'm very much influenced by, like, negative things. It's very much a stress release. My last solo hip-hop record that I put out before this one was in 2009. And it was very much like a rap record. It wasn't all the, guitar and everything. But it took that long in between. Now, in between then, I've done a lot of, like, features with friends, and I've done A lot of me and this kid Khan. I was the producer. He was the MC, and we would tour. We went to Canada, and that was very much like hip hop. And then me and this chick Maji, I was doing R&B music with her, and I do acoustic thing with this other girl. So it's like I definitely was making other music, but I needed like a lot to be happening in my life for me to like focus down and create like a new album. So it was definitely a lot. It was the divorce. I was in the Army for 6 years and I got sick. I got medically discharged from that. It was a lot of stuff. Rich passed away. Then I went through a period, and I was, at the time, no one knew it. The studio was popping. No one ever knew it, but after all this stuff happened, I was homeless for a little bit, staying in a homeless shelter, living in my car on Cheltenham Ave, under the Home Depot overpass, like just a lot of stuff going on. It just took all this, and then I met a girl that I had previously been with, and she got pregnant, and then we had a baby. Everything just changed, and I flipped into this great situation. Now I'm better than I ever was. I love my daughter, and now me and her have a great relationship, and she's very supportive of the music thing. And so it was just this terrible situation that kind of flipped over almost instantly, and that's where Rainer came from. It's definitely a lot of lyrically, it's a lot about past trauma and then looking forward in different ways.
So tragedy turned victory. Tragedy turned triumph, I should say. Tragedy turned triumph. So what exactly makes you create? Pleasure, pain, or insight?
Mainly pain. I wish I could say that I could create from other things. It's something I've struggled with forever. I'm very much I've dealt with depression and other issues my whole life. I've definitely I was definitely labeled the troubled kid with, always fighting at school and getting kicked out of school and all that. So pain and sadness kind of been my on that song I'm There, The Force, it's I don't even remember it. That really hits the home run of what the album kind of is about. I think I say I find happiness in sadness. I'm real tragic. I don't know if this is uncensored radio, but there's a couple F words in there. So
no, you're good.
Yeah,
Don't even worry about it.
It kind of just shows how I feel. Honestly, some of the best times I've ever felt were definitely being sad. If that makes sense. Sounds insane, but so that's where I draw a lot of inspiration to for lyrics, at least. For music, I can make music all day. That's my job. Being at the studio, people paying me to make music for them, or teaching. I might make 10 beats a day with kids, just showing them how to use Machine or other MPCs and MIDI keyboards and whatnot. So I can make music all day. It's just connecting that music with some lyrics. That's definitely if there's not something tragic in my life, it's kind of hard. I'm working on it though.
Okay, well, let's take tragedy out for a minute, because you keep talking about introducing children or kids to music, and you have a studio and you work with kids. How does having that studio and interacting with the children or kids make you a better artist than what you were before you did that?
I think if you can teach a kid to do something, then you really know what you're doing. And so that's if you can teach anybody to do something, and I've kind of went all over the country. I was in Houston for 2 years teaching at a school called Workshops Houston. A couple of those kids, they loved my program so much they moved to Philly to go to college and work at the studio now. I've been to, speaking engagements at Florida State University, Rice University. So all over the country, I try to go and teach, my philosophies on music and how my philosophies on what being successful in music is. And teaching them, I think it makes you better because it fulfills you for sure. There's nothing better than giving a young kid some kind of hope or something to look forward to, or teaching a kid like, yeah, you know, I don't want to say you're never going to make it as a rapper, but it's really great to have these skills so that you can make something of yourself in the music industry. You know, be a mixing engineer, be a mastering engineer, be a broadcast engineer, be, you know, a producer, be what, I mean, even if you wanted to get a job in the government, you know, they have audio forensics, they have, you work for the NFL, and there's all these avenues that if you have these skills you can go with, and I think it opens a lot of kids' eyes. And, you know, a handful of my kids have, you know, started going to college and started really, like, actually having pretty nice careers. And, you know, we had our own little program outside of some of the schools we were working with college-age kids. And it's very fulfilling to work with the kids. It's probably my favorite thing that I do.
You said a lot in there, and that was dope, because I always say hip-hop is nothing but a door. And most people run to get to the door, then they stop. But it's the ones that really make it that walk through the door and realize that hip-hop opens up the world, not just opens up your eardrums, you know?
I agree.
And I want to ask you something. Since you've traveled the nation talking and teaching music, do you miss the regionality of music, or do you think us being on the internet and everybody sounding the same elevated the game?
I mean, I definitely, like, to me, like, I do kind of miss it because, you know, I'm coming from the East Coast. Like, my heart is all about East Coast music, specifically, like, East Coast hip-hop. Like, I grew up on that kind of stuff, you know. Like, I'm not a big West Coast guy, honestly. I feel like when I listen to the West Coast hip-hop, it just reminds me of palm trees and stuff I don't know about. You know what I mean? So I like some of the Southern, you know, Outkast, Goody Mob, Killer Mike, like all those older records were great. And of course I like some of the West Coast stuff. I'm not trying to write it all off, but I do miss it for that. Like, I miss the competition of the regions. You know, the Midwest had such a crazy scene. The South had a crazy scene. You know, you had the East Coast, the West Coast. Obviously, that was like popping all the time. But the East Coast just had the lyrics. Maybe the beats were a little more stripped down, like Nas and Pharoah Monch and all these guys. The beats weren't as crazy, but they were just saying stuff, bro. Like, it very like any Pharoah Monch, like When the Gun Draws, like that was like the first thing that just like really like pulled me in so much to like analyze this man's bars. How like 4 bars in a row were on the same like rhyme scheme or the same like topic, but like the way he flipped it, it meant 20 different things, and like that's what I always liked. You know what I mean? Like I didn't care as much about the beats. I just liked that East Coast sound, and so I do miss it for that. I do think that the internet is great for a lot of people being more open to mixing genres. So I think that's dope. Like I think a lot more people nowadays aren't scared to be weird or scared to experiment. And I definitely like that, but I do miss like the old school sounds.
That's why I could tell why you like Sean Price now. Like, I get it. When a man gets on the mic and says, "You're a battle rapper," or "You rap at the battle," I shoot up the place. It's a rap for the battle.
Yeah, that's hard. Or oh man, he had that whole album was crazy. Mike Tyson.
Yeah. Mike Tyson, yeah.
Yeah, that whole album was crazy. But what was the one bar?
Grundy.
Solomon Grundy, yeah. Sell coke that's white as the milk of magnesia. Yeah, that was like, I remember hearing that. Like, I almost threw the album out in my car. Like, this is crazy.
But see, it wasn't that even to come off of hip hop. Even if we went rock, regionality is what made rock hot. Because if you think about the grunge scene that came out of Seattle, you think about No Doubt, how they transformed their sound after pain and heartbreak, as we said just earlier. Even if you looked at REM, you know what I'm saying? Who made My Name Is Mud? Who made that? You remember that?
I'm trying to remember it now.
Yeah, I can't even remember right now, but it was a great song. You know, the riff really made the point. So regionality and bringing other sides of the music, whether it's an accent, interpretation of rhythm or beat, that's what made the music come alive. When I listen to your song Rolling Stone, there's a lot of life in that song, but there's also a lot of translation in it as well. Why don't you tell me about that song and where are you going to take that song? What is the ultimate goal besides having it heard?
Well, that song, you know, that one, when I was making it, I was in a really wild place. Like a couple weeks after I made that song, I had like full. It was like right when I was homeless. I had like mental breakdowns that nobody knew about. Like I was pretty messed up when that was happening. But I remember like I laid the bass line down, and it was me and one of my engineers at the studio. He was recording me, and I put the bass line down, and it just had that like upbeat, like dun 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 dun. It was just poppy, but like kind of driving. And then once I put the piano and the drums on it, I was like, yeah, this is kind of crazy. It was like kind of like disco-y almost. Like originally we were going to call the song Disco Fury. And
okay.
I got talked out of that. So everybody was like, nah, don't do that. I was like, okay. But and then I was just being goofy. Like I was in like a whole, you know, manic state. And like in the beginning there's like a riser in there, and that's actually me pissing in a bottle in the booth. You can probably pick it out. And another thing, I'm like every like couple bars there's like a sounds like a shaker. It's actually like an aerosol can I was spraying. And so I like to do that, like put like Foley sounds in music. And I just like had that melody like the and I was trying to go like, I wasn't really trying to go like new school with it, but it just kind of came out like that. It's very different from the rest of the record. But when it came out, I was like, man, this song could do something. And Maji, me and her had just put out that, we put out a R&B record. And I called her and asked her to come be on the hook on that one. And she was like, oh, this is a big song. So I put it out, and it just kind of started getting picked up by a bunch of FM stations, and I was getting notifications that it was getting played in London, and it was getting played in, you know, Canada and all over the country on all these FM radio stations, and I was like, wow, I wasn't expecting it, but if any of those songs were going to get it, I think that one. I think it's a really good, like, pop song. It still has like hip hop flavor. It has some dance flavor. It's a very like mixed genre song, but I think it's definitely one that anybody who hears it can relate to lyrically. It's very, you know, just lyrically. I don't want to say digestible because that makes it sound weak, but you know what I mean. Like it's something that people don't have a hard time with understanding what it's about. Whereas like a song like Rainer, you know, might be a little more. Somebody with a little more of an experimental ear needs to listen to because it starts off very much like a rock emo song and then goes into like the hip hop. So it's like Rolling Stone is pretty like straightforward, and it's just kind of like, again, it's like another song that just fell together. I made this whole track pretty much in one night, and yeah, I mean I love that song. It's very different than the rest of the album, but it really hits home everything.
It's a great song, actually. And it's not great because it can get played on radio. It's great because it shows your range and it shows that you're an artist with depth. And that's what many people don't have, unfortunately, is depth. People have the will to create, but what they're creating isn't really sound or experience. They're creating, I don't want to piss on their genre or whatever. I'm just saying a lot of people create just because they can, not because it's in them. You see what I'm saying? And with that song, you're showing that you have range and you have the title of creator with your skill set. So I salute you on doing it, making the music, but more importantly, so that you show that you're able to take your range outside of just one specific genre that people could try to pigeonhole you in. You are an artist, not a thing, you know?
That's something I try to be. Like, I definitely don't ever want to feel like I'm pigeonholed in anything. I know, like, people know us as, like, you know, we've been doing the Marshall Ciphers for 10 years now, and people kind of labeled our studio like the old school hip hop studio, and people kind of know me for that. And it's just like, I don't want that to be what people know me for, like being like a hip hop only guy. Like, I really want people just to like hear a record that I put out and be like, okay, this is just like dope music. Even though, of course, I want to show love to hip hop artists and the people who've inspired me. I never want to make it sound. I don't like when people are like, I'm not a rapper, I'm an artist. It's like, okay, I don't want to sound like that, but I definitely want to sound like I'm trying to expose people who listen to me to like elements of things that I've been inspired by, and that's maybe it's a guitar riff or maybe it's this or that, but I'm trying to just do what's in my heart and not what anybody else is expecting. Because if you listen to we put out this album, me and Khan, called Light at the End, and it's very much, like I said, a hip hop record. It's hard drums, hard bass, him rapping like crazy. And if you listen to that versus this, you'd just be like, there's no way it's the same guy making this music. But like I try to have some kind of depth, like you said, and some range. And every time I get in the car, I'm trying to listen to something new that's not, I don't want to like only listen to one type of thing. I think that it kind of closes off your brain if you can't appreciate other music.
Facts. That's what made Old Dirty Bastard great, because he can make shimmy shimmy y'all, but then he can come back with, hey, I want your money. You know what I'm saying? That's what makes Nas a legend, because people will always want him to be Illmatic, but then he can make the Al Jarreau rap. And then some people will like it, some people won't, but you can't deny his artistry,
Yeah, I agree.
So with that being said, everybody, we are listening to Steve Sxaks, an artist who not only creates, but translates while he does his music. Go ahead and say what you was going to say. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was just agreeing with you.
So once again, before we close out the interview with something great, give everybody your social media, how they can follow you, and let's start there. Do that for me, please.
Yeah, I mean, I'm at Steve_Sxaks on Instagram. That's Sxaks. I'm Steve Sxaks on all music platforms, Tidal, Apple Music, Amazon, Spotify, Deezer, all that. Whatever you listen to, I'm on it. Also very Google friendly. If you're interested in studio time, you can look me up. You can go to either letsgoguy.com. That's my personal production website with all my credits and all this. I'm not going to sit here and name drop. I can't do that, but there's some good credits on there. And then or marstonhouse.studio. You can actually book time with me directly on that. But yeah, I'm open to any. I'm always open to work with new people and new artists, and I definitely take a lot of inspiration from everybody I meet. Like, just maybe they put me onto something that I didn't know, or some type of group, or a new sound, or new flavor. So I'm always looking to work with new, hungry people.
Love it. I have some people out off the interview we're going to talk about, because I would love to get your opinion on certain stuff that they make. And,
yeah, for sure.
I would love to hear what you think. So with that being said, everybody, we are going into our rapid fire questions. The rapid fire questions are not yes/no questions, sir. The rapid fire questions are questions that show not only the depth of who you are as an artist, they also show everyone that you are more than music. You are a creator, and one of the new future favorite voices that they're going to hear in the future. So are you ready to have some fun?
I'm always ready to have fun.
All right, well, here we go. Question number 1. What song or album perfectly describes your life? And it's a song that you have not made. It's something that somebody else has made that touched your heart.
Wow. It is hard for me to limit it to a song. I'm going to go a separate genre here. I think I'm going to say Manchester Orchestra and the song Simple Math. It definitely hits me hard. The whole album hits me really hard, but that song in particular, it's very much a hard-hitting song. I'll go Manchester Orchestra, Simple Math. It's also like I think one of the greatest sounding albums and songs from an engineer perspective. So I think it hits me on a million different levels.
Gosh, what's up? Okay, I have to check that out. Never heard. Question number 2. Being a creator and having skills when it comes to the boards is very interesting, because that means that you know how to blend and bend sound. Since you work with artists, tell me about Maji, Khan, and what makes them great artists, and how did they teach you about your own sound?
Whew. Well, I mean, I work with so many people, and a lot of people that, I've been very fortunate with meeting a lot of these people through the studio and through the ciphers, and there's a handful of people that I'm like, I gotta do stuff. Me and Khan put out 3 projects together, and I actually met Khan when he was 15 years old. He was a fan of the Marcinelle ciphers. He's 23 now, and he just like came in and was like, with a couple other younger kids, like being a nerd, like, oh, this is where this guy rapped, and I'm like, yeah. And we were just kind of like making fun of these kids, like, these kids are going to suck. And they just get in the booth, and it was like, wow. We actually started our entire record label for the group of 4 kids. It was Amadio, John Khan, and Eddie Madrid. They were in like a little group together, and they were just like light years above people who were, 30 and over at 15. So we kind of like, they all were like young, angsty kids, and we ended up kind of getting away from all of them. And then me and Khan reconnected when I was teaching in Houston, and he flew down here for like a week to work with my students. And just like his work ethic was crazy. Like he did like 30 tracks and 2 music videos and a show, and it was just like, it kind of like blew my mind. So when I moved back home to Philly, I brought him into the studio, and we made the first song we did together, Made, in like, an hour, and it was just like, wow, this like sounds great. So then we ended up cutting the whole album, the first album, New Dawn City, in like a month at the most, and then we set up a Canada tour, and we did an EP with some guys from Canada called Made to Last, and then we were playing a bunch of shows. We got to open for a couple bigger like new guys like Token and Ari the Rugged Man, and a couple other guys that we got some, really dope shows from. And the Alcoholics came through. We ended up being like the steady opener for like any big act that was coming through Philly for like a couple months. And then the Rona hit, and that just kind of like threw everything off. But with Maji, and with both of them, I can admit that I can be hard to work with. I am kind of like controlling over, like it's always a democracy, but like if I think like you could deliver better, I'm gonna make you do it over. And if I think something was corny or whack, I'm gonna let you know. And that can definitely kind of like be hard for some people to take. So I'm not for everybody when it comes to like producer artist duos, but I always make sure that whatever we're doing like comes out the best. And Maji was like the same way. Like me and her just click really well. She is such a diverse singer. Like she plays guitar, and she's always doing like really like psychedelic like meditation stuff. And with our record, it ranges so wide from being this really like crazy R&B project to like some more like in your face like new wave type stuff, and she just kind of was with it. Like I don't know how she did it, but everything that I would throw at her, she would be able to run with it. So those two, they definitely are. They inspire me to work with, because it's like they're so different from each other and so different than other people that I work with. I mean, there's other guys that put out a lot of records with, like Scott Trey Digga, and he's just like a goofball. Like I've known him for over a decade, and I just let him be goofy on tracks, and that's like my fun project. Like everything is different. Like I never want to put out the same record with 2 people. So I try to like I try to have an artist cater to me while I cater to them. I guess that's the easiest way I could have summed it up instead of giving you 10 minutes on that.
No, it's all good because artists are the people with the biggest egos in the world, and sometimes you got to tell them when it's not good, but you also got to cater to them to keep them well fed so they will create. So that is a balancing act. That goes back to the teacher in you, I believe. You know.
Yeah.
Next question I have to ask you will really reflect what you said in a different way. Collaborating is one of the gifts that makes music great, but it can also take away from it. And when you've collaborated, you've gotten the best out of people. If you could pick a feature artist that collaborated with a main artist, who was the greatest feature artist or guest 16 or singer on a track ever to you?
On a track that I did or on a track that...
Period. Doesn't matter. Period.
Okay. Whew, man.
I got good questions, right?
You got good questions. I'm really having to dig pretty heavy into my soul on some of these questions.
Welcome to Heritage Hip Hop.
Best feature I've ever heard. Man, I'd probably say Black Thought on, and this is like a newer Thought verse. Thought, if I didn't make it clear, Thought is my number one all-time favorite. It's like Thought, Sean Price, Sparrow Munch, Beans. Like, I'm pretty consistent with stuff I like. But Black Thought, he did that song on that Prime record with Royce the
Yep.
Man.
The remix, yeah.
Yeah, the remix one. Yo, he slaughtered that. It was just like, I think I ran that back 56 times, just like kept having to rewind. And Royce is no slouch. Don't get me wrong. I think Royce on, I'm not a huge Yellow Wolf fan, but it was like Royce, Yellow Wolf, and Ritz or somebody like that. And Royce, I forget what that song, I think it was called Lame, or LAMS, I think the track's called. And Royce killed that one. But Thought on that track is just like, that's pretty mind-blowing stuff right there.
Yeah, that's next level stuff, by far.
There's so many good ones, though. You know, like, I mean, there's some classic features, but to me, it's just like, I don't know, that one just, like, stands so far. Like, I'd love to get Thought on one of my records, so that one just blows me away.
You want to go work with Black Thought? Well, we put it out in the air. Let's make it happen. You put it out there. Now we got to work towards it. It's all good.
Yeah, one of my artists was his mentor, Jazz Fresh. He's Jazz Fresh, Philly legend. You know, Beans and Thought always credit him as like the reason they rap. So I'm hoping one day it happens. Nice.
All right. I would like to meet Jazz Fresh and interview him. Hey, make it happen for me.
He's super dope. He was literally like the original Philly rapper. He was on Jazzy Jeff's label back with Fresh Prince and all that. He's been around forever, but he's still making great music. Like, we put out 3 records with him, and it's got Beans is on it, Doodlebug from Diggable Planets, and just like a whole huge array of like, legends are all over that thing. So Jazz is like super dope.
All right. Question. Good question. The remix is something that we did in hip-hop and in music where we would remake a song and add a beat or add people to the track. What is the greatest remix of all time?
Whew, man. Another one. The greatest remix of all time. I'm trying to think because I'm a big fan of the remix. I'm putting out the Rainer instrumental album, and I'm doing like a thing where anybody who remixes my songs, I'll put them all together and put them out. We distribute through Sony Orchard, and like I'll cover all the costs on it. So I love remixes. Man, that's hard though. What's the greatest remix of all time? I think, man, killing me here, bro. do you get into like the remixes where people take people's verses and remix the beat? Are you counting that one?
Whatever you want.
There's so many good remixes. I think Method Man, the Prodigy remix, that's up there. I mean, I know that's also kind of newer. That's like earlier 2000s, but I'd say that's probably up there. That's the one that's sticking out to me right now.
Okay. Hey. Sounds good.
It sounds random, but I'm thinking about a million different remixes, because I'm definitely, like, that's one thing I go over in class is trying to find acapellas and remaking beats for people. So I definitely, I appreciate a good remix. I appreciate a remix of even just people jumping on a remix of a track, but I'd say that Meth Prodigy remix that's pretty dope. That's up there. I mean, there's so many, there's some classic, Beastie Boys remix that I really like. There's a bunch, but I think that one's probably the one. Since it's the first one that came out, that's the one I'm going to say.
Okay. I have a different question for you then, which hopefully will serve a great purpose in this interview, and it will speak to your acumen of music, of choice. My question would be this. As an engineer, what do you think is the one thing about music people take for granted that they don't hear or just appreciate? Totally.
Okay, so that one, I got you on that, and I just thought of another one for your last question. I don't know if you ever heard this, but Mos Def, he remixed all the MF Doom classics, but he just did MF Doom's lyrics, but he redid them. Hey, that's crazy. If that counts, I want to put that up there too. It's pretty magical to listen to that. And he made a video series out of it. Not many people were on it, but I remember when it came out, I had that thing on repeat. But all right, back to the next question. My bad. Something that I think that people don't really realize that they're listening to that's really important for an engineer. I call it creating an environment. It's what I always tell engineers to do. It's a great engineer can completely change the entire vibe of the song. You can have a reverse reverb that builds up into a crash that just kicks off the beat. You can have, that swelling reverb that puts the vocals far out in the background on the singing part. Creating that environment, I don't think people realize, how much effort goes into that. And I think that fully answers what your question was, but that to me that's the essence of it. They don't really, that environment that the engineer is able to make, that's kind of the thing.
I think it perfectly answered the question. Because most people, when we listen to music, we just listen for the sound. We're not listening to the texture or the fullness. And it's when people who actually understand the fullness of it, those are the people who love the music that much more. So here's another question for you, as a person who really does music to the best of their capability. Now that technology is so free and people can do anything and call themselves creators, what do people get wrong when it comes to creating music?
What do people get wrong? Again, like I said earlier,
the technical side I'm talking about, not just people just picking it up and trying to do something. But
for the technical side, I think people just they don't understand how to use certain things like compressors, EQ. They don't understand the different types of EQ, a parametric EQ versus a graphic EQ, what your uses for different types of EQs are, what your uses for different types of compressors are, ratio and release and attack. I think people don't understand what that is. A lot of younger engineers too, they are just, it's not a lot of trial. Everything's been made to be so lazy. So a lot of kids are able to just click male rapper vocal preset and just have a really basic EQ and compressor combo on some vocals, and it just sounds terrible. Same thing with, like how I was saying earlier, people not understanding how to get the key of a song and having your auto-tune in the wrong key and just thinking it sounds hot because you hit the bowl in the studio or whatever. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff like that. I think it's a lot of compressors. Oh, I mean, it's also a lot of, from the artists themselves thinking they know what they want, or, because that can get hard as an engineer. You have an artist come in, they think something sounds good, and you're trying to explain to them it sounds terrible, and they don't even want to hear it. And in that case, it's like, all right, well, I'll shut up and just take your money. But that's not my type of. That's not the type of people I like to work with. But at the end of the day, it is a business, and in business, you got to make sure the customer's happy. And these kids just want to emulate what's popular. And if you have songs where the production value is low, and honestly, like Philly's to blame for a lot of bad sound. Like when a lot of Meek Mill, when he first was coming out, I know these guys personally, so I don't want to like just be throwing people under the bus, but it was not really knowing how to like mix and how to master. In this thing of loudness is better came out, and that couldn't be farther from the truth. Just cranking something up and turning the gain up, or recording something where it's already hot and the vocals are peaking, you're never going to get a great sound. But because that was so popular and he was like on the rise, that became the sound for a while. There was at least like 5 years where just everything was super loud, and you'd have clients coming in and they just want you to turn it up to where it was distorted, and they didn't really care as much about the mix as long as everything was loud, not the dynamics of the mix. So we kind of are starting to get away from that now, but now everything is that like emo rap, like I said, the Juice WRLD, the Lil Peeps, the other guy, Sxacks. That's kind of where all the kids are now. So it's like heavy reverb. Like the reverb is an instrument at this point, and I do think that it sounds not great, but it's the same deal. Like it's a customer service based business. If I go to the barber shop and I want a mullet, like if I tell him I want it, he doesn't want to do it, but it's like he's got to make his money. And as an engineer, sometimes you got to bite the bullet against your own creative wishes and just give the people what they want.
True. That is, unfortunately, that is what business is. For everybody out there listening, this is Steve Sxaks, who has the album Raynor out right now, which is worth your listen. I ask you, please check the album out. Streaming is great, but purchasing is better. So if you hear one of the great songs we talked about on this interview and you like them, please, instead of buying a scratch off or water you're not really thirsty or something that you just throw $1 away on, buy this single. And if you hear even more music that you like, please buy the album, because by purchasing, not only are you ensuring yourself more music, but you're sewing into them so he can always be the great artist you want him to be and be able to produce more and more. The more he makes off the music, the more music you can get. So whether it's a single or a full project, please purchase the project and sew into him so that you can get the best of your money and what you've invested into. Do you agree, sir?
I absolutely agree. I appreciate the amazing plug.
Hey, man, we all be able to tell the truth. We're not about the middleman. We're about the purchasing power that creates the relationship between the artist and the customer. So with that being said, this is the last question of our interview, and this is the most important question I ask on every first interview. So me saying first means that the door is always open. If you're willing to come back, we'll always have you. And the interviews get better.
Yeah, I'd love to come back.
All right, so here's the final. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was saying this has been a great interview. And one thing I wanted to tag on to that last thing you said, actually all the proceeds from album sales for this, I'm donating to bail funds for protesters during all the George Floyd protests. So literally every penny I make off of that, I'm donating. So it's all for good causes. If you want to know more about it, I like giving out all the different bail funds that I'm donating to, and I'm very willing to anybody who wants to contact, and if they're looking for different funds, if you don't want to buy my record, you can donate directly to a couple of different ones. So feel free to hit me up. I'd love to talk about that.
That's very admirable. Thank you, sir. But everybody listening, Bob Boomerang. At least that. Get the record show. All right, so here we go with the question, all right? One day, you're not going to be on this planet. You're going to pass away, unfortunately. Before we continue, may the Most High bless you so that does not come soon to you or any one of your family members, especially during protests, brutality, and COVID-19. Let's put that out there first. Next. Thank you. I'm glad. But you're gonna pass away, and then one day there's gonna be like a big ballroom brawl in Philadelphia, right? And someone's gonna knock somebody through a wall, and they're gonna find something crazy 1,000 years from now called the laptop, because they don't use those anymore. And and when that wall falls and this person steals this laptop, they're gonna plug it into their wall. And they're going to say to their girlfriend, like, babe, I found something weird. You know what this is? This is ancient old stuff. It might be worth some money. They're going to turn this laptop on, and guess what? Raynor is going to come up. and you're going to be introduced to people 1,000 years from now who've never heard your music. My most important question in this interview is, what is the legacy that you left behind that made the world better because you did music?
Well, I mean, I hope that my legacy will be that, you know, I put out music that has inspired people to go on and feel like that they don't have to be in a box or trapped in, you know, different stereotypes for genres, and just feel like that they can create. I would hope that in 100 years, hopefully I make it that long, some kid finds the music and maybe it inspires them to pick up a guitar, or it inspires them to, you know, dig a little deeper or be able to deal with their emotions, or, you know, that's really the main thing. Like, I hope that my legacy is kids, everybody that I've worked with kind of gets on that same wave where your goal is to be true to yourself and inspire and to be a good person. And, you know, I hope that these kids who find my music in 100 years, they can relate to something still. I don't think that relationship problems are ever going to go away. So that shouldn't be too hard of an ask. But yeah, that's really what I hope my legacy is. Like, people who can relate to what I was saying, who can still vibe with the music. Because I think it's, you know, tracks like Boomerang, tracks like Rolling Stone, I think those are timeless type tracks.
True indeed, they are. And with that being said, everybody, remember, no matter what you go through, you're always growing and learning as you progress through life, and music can help you with that journey. Whether it helps you understand your pain to beat it, or it helps you to play out your pain so you can live through it, it's always good to have great music and artists who not only talk to you, but help you grow. KRS once said, a rapper raps to you, an MC raps about your life with you or to you. So always connect with great artists because they help you with your life, not just entertain your life. With that being said, this is Carrera from Heritage Hip Hop with Steve Sxaks. We say peace, and we out.
All right, I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Heritage Hip Hop Podcast. Steve Sxaks remembers Sean Price as not only a great MC, but somebody who gave him insight to how to create bars and also create a narrative. So, with the passing of Sean Price last week, it is our pleasure to be able to talk to an MC about another MC that not only influenced the game, but changed the way that we appreciate the art of lyricism as well. So, with that being said, rest in peace, Sean Price. Salute to the Ruck Down and Duck Down families as well, because without Sean Price, the game would have never elevated the way that it has. This episode is brought to you by Transparent Credit Repair, the superheroes of the financial literacy and credit repair world. If you're looking to open your wallet and receive more money instead of paying off debts, please consider fixing your credit score by eliminating your debt and creating better credit scores to bring in better income. To do that, contact Transparent Credit Repair at www.transparentcreditrepair.com, or you can call them at 862-250-5122 and tell them Heritage Hip Hop referred you and get something very special in the transaction. Once again, We thank you all for coming and joining us on this great episode featuring Steve Sxaks. Before we get out of here, we must acknowledge our team. We want to give a shout out to everybody who supports Heritage Hip Hop and who has subscribed to the website. By subscribing to the website, not only do you help the movement, but you also get our Jersey Series playlist Part 2 featuring the Old 50 Boys. The Old 50 Boys are Prince Op, Reek, and True Triller, and they are 3 MCs that formed a group who are one of the best movements in New Jersey. So to receive this playlist, subscribe to www.heritagehiphop.com and you will receive an email with the playlist on it. Also, you can follow us on all social media. We're on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and you will be alerted when any new videos, any new live shows, or any new interviews come up, podcasts or whatever. Heritage Hip Hop has not stopped with COVID. We've pivoted to make sure that we help celebrate you, the people that live hip hop and who love hip hop, not only from the artist perspective, but we are celebrating the fans as well. We bring you your future favorite artists right now. With that being said, also, I'd like to give a shout out to Fatty's Place, our virtual assistant, Fire Jaws, our promotion placement and marketing person, Lex Diamonds of Diamonds Entertainment LLC, and Adiyar, Mr. Big A himself of the Big A Show. They are the team that not only makes Heritage Hip Hop successful, but they help put everything together and inspire the movement so more content comes. So if you want to follow them, look them up on Instagram, and Adiyar is on YouTube, where you can find the Big A Show Season 1, and Season 2 is coming very soon. Once again, this is Karev from Heritage Hip Hop, thanking you for being a supporter and somebody who comes on this journey with us to give you the best hip hop out that maybe the mainstream is not aware about. We have the best kept secrets to your future favorite artists today, right now. And with that being said, this is Karev saying peace, and we out.